To properly cover not just the quality but also the functionality of today's product, there is a lot of ground we have to cover. And therefore, I don't want to waste any more time and I will just jump straight into the review of the Creative H6. It is a gaming headset and it costs only, and there is really no other way to say it, only $70. Especially if you consider what you get here for this price. It is so impressive that I'm actually gonna spoil the verdict already now and tell you that this is totally recommendable. Absolutely, and it actually is pretty much right now my recommendation at around 100 or maybe even a little bit higher. Yes, it's that good, but I guess you want to know why. So that's what we are here for. So what you get for those $70 is the headphone obviously itself. Then we get a 2-meter long USB cable because this doesn't need a 3.5mm cable, so a sound card or a console, because you can use it with the USB. But obviously also with the 3.5mm jack, which means this at the moment is compatible with pretty much everything out there. With an Xbox One, even though I think for that you need the 3.5mm to get the mic working, but also with an PS4, Nintendo Switch, Mac and PC. So you're pretty much fully covered here. We also get a microphone that is detachable. You just plug it in. It also is quite flexible, even though at some point it always rotates back to its initial state, but generally it is very good. About the quality a little bit more later on. There is also in the packaging a 3.5mm cable, 1.5 meters long, that unfortunately I misplaced. But yeah, I guess you kind of know what that looks like. And talking about the looks, this is what the headphone looks like. I definitely have to say that I really like the kind of minimal approach. It looks very clean. With, though, as you can see, RGB lighting, but obviously you can turn it off. In terms of build quality, I have to say that it doesn't maybe feel super premium, but it feels well put together, especially for this price. Materials feels fine. And if there would be maybe two things to point out, it's maybe that we don't really have any padding on the headband, which though has no negative impact on the comfort, which I will get into later on. But the one thing that urges me a little bit is that this headband adjustment is just a little bit too loose and kind of changes all the time at its own. If it's on your head, not, but yeah, just that. Otherwise, well, the pads, I have to say, I really like a lot. Not just because the cutout is big enough and pretty much every ear should fit in, because usually my right ear has issues. I didn't have those here. Also thick enough, so deep enough, and your ears shouldn't touch. And even though the pads itself are quite soft, they don't really have much give. So I don't think even people with ears sticking out a little bit more should have an issue here. So I'm pretty pleased. And if not, you can replace the ear pads and maybe find better ones. But I don't really see a reason for that, especially since they come along with, as you can maybe hear, quite a breathable material. So these won't get warm after hours and hours. They are quite comfortable. I definitely like that a lot. Now, since this is also USB powered, we have some buttons, like for example here, as you can see, for the monitor. That is something that you can change in the software later on. You have a volume scroll wheel. We also get the mute button, the 3.5mm jack, micro USB, the port for the microphone, and an equalizer button. So that's pretty much it. So let's take a look at how it is on my head. I would definitely have to say this is nice. It looks good. And it also feels good on your head because the comfort is really good, especially since I mentioned that the headband doesn't really have much padding, which is not an issue. Because the way that they kind of chose the clamping force is pretty much ideal, because they put a little bit more pressure onto the sides, which means the headband is just there as a little bit of a support for the length. But otherwise, the whole balance of the weight, which is actually pretty much on the lower end here, they don't feel heavy at all. The weight is being held by the ear cups. And due to those being quite soft after all, to kind of get the pressure out of the way, these are pretty much forgettable. So very comfortable for a long period of time. And due to the little bit more snugly fit, they are also very secure, so they don't really move at all. And you can use these for hours and hours, very comfortable. There is no heating up going on. But when it comes to the isolation, you might expect that it's maybe not that good, because usually those more breathable ones let through a little bit more sounds. I have to say, if we compare this with, for example, a closed back one with leather pads, it's actually just about as good, because they have this kind of technique where they block out sounds from the outside, and what you get through is just a little bit through the ear pads. But generally I hear myself quite muffled, so this is fine. Now, the next thing that you might want to be interested in is the microphone quality, and I made a demo for that, so just check that. And this right now would be the mic test for the Creative H6, even though, as you can see, with the voice clarity feature still being turned off. Later on though, I will turn it on just so you can hear of how much of a difference, or actually even more so an improvement it is. In terms of position, I placed it just right out of my peripheral vision so it doesn't disturb me, and in terms of distance, what I've noticed is that it doesn't seem to have a big audible impact, neither a negative nor a positive one, because usually you get closer, you get a little bit more body with that, but also more plosions, get a little bit further away, you lose out on body, but the plosions aren't the thing, which is a good thing since you don't really have to think about where you have to place it, but you also therefore can't really improve it any further, which is also not really necessary, because as you can hear already by now, it sounds very natural, it's not boomy at all, it's also not thin. I would say the balance is just right, and if I would have to complain about one single thing, it's just the fact that the bass level white noise is just a little bit too loud. And I'm gonna finish off the test before I'm gonna turn on voice clarity with the usual sounds that a gamer just has, like for example the mouse, the keyboard. Now let's hear some a little bit over-exaggerated breathing and some P noises. So I have to say the breathing and plosions are still audible, but I would say they are actually decent enough and natural enough so it doesn't really disturb me. But now let's turn on voice clarity full on with all features on. And you can now already hear a big difference. Everything is completely clean. There is no white noise at all. That comes along with one small downsides, like for example the sound being a little bit more muffled. But I guess in gaming situations it's maybe nicer for you to have the cleaner sound without any distractions. But let's actually turn off some other things right now, like for example smart volume. Smart volume has a big impact, and I would definitely recommend you to leave it on, because it just boosts the whole sound. It makes everything just better. I think it's not just louder, but therefore the noise level stays on the same level as it is before. Now, echo cancellation, I will turn it off right now, and I don't think you will hear really any difference, because maybe in some situations it might have an impact, but usually not. So let's turn it off. Also the noise reduction, now you have the pretty much typical sound as you had before, which is not bad, but I would say at least if you turn on noise reduction, as you can hear right now, and smart volume, this microphone got from good to actually quite, I would say, outstanding. Especially in this price range, I haven't yet heard something that brings pretty much no kind of background noise with it, but still maintains clean. Okay, you lose out on a little bit some clarity, some brilliance in the highs, but for this price, this is actually pretty special, especially since it doesn't really come with any other downsides, like for example issues with the noise reduction. Even though I also have to say that the noise reduction doesn't really help much with the gaming sounds, like for example once again now with the mouse, the keyboard, now the P noises, and the breathing. So as you can hear, those really don't get cancelled out any further, but generally I have to say in this price range I still have to see, and I would almost pretty much say, more impressive headset microphone. So pretty good job. I like it a lot. Okay, so you've heard the microphone using the USB, but I guess now you maybe want to know, and especially if you already have a good sound card or maybe an external solution or a console, how it sounds like with that. Now, what I'm gonna do is give you a demo right now with the Sound Blaster G6 headphone amplifier, but also pretty much external sound card. So let's take a listen at that. And to finish off the mic demo, this now is the H6 microphone attached to the Creative G6 external sound card / headphone amp, just so you can get a feel for it, how it would sound without the USB connection. And well, the most notable thing here is actually the one thing that you might not be even able to hear, which is the lack of the background noise that I complained a little bit about on the USB connection. With this solution, it's way cleaner, and well, let's just see this with a few seconds of silence. As you probably haven't even heard now, this is pretty much background hiss free. It's very clean, and in terms of actual sound quality, I would kind of put it in between what we got with the USB solution with voice clarity turned on and off, which means that the sound is still a little bit more muffled than it was with voice clarity turned off, but therefore there's no background hiss and we still get the good quality. It's actually a little bit clearer compared to what we got with noise reduction being turned on, which means after all this is the best possible solution, since especially the noise reduction, which you won't get here, didn't really help much with actually kind of cancelling out gaming sounds. So pretty nice solution. And that was it. Let's continue with the review. Okay, so I guess by now you know exactly how the microphone will sound like, and we can pretty much skip that part and get over to the heart of this headset, which is the software. Okay, I have to say, even though I like the software a lot, the maybe layout isn't all that perfect because it's not quite as adaptive. As you can see here, we have a lot of wasted space, but therefore we have a convenient way to quickly access pretty much everything that we might want to need. Because, for example, here in the dashboard, we can see that we have the lighting option where we can choose the color, also what it does in terms of like glowing and such things. If we go back, we have options for the equalizer, we can change the acoustic engine and also the scout mode. But these once again are also here available, and you can change them already for this setting. So you pretty much don't almost ever have to leave the dashboard. Scout mode, let's talk about that one for a second. Well, what it offers is a kind of way to kind of boost the mids and the highs, which should make footsteps a little bit more obvious. But what I've also noticed is that it also makes kind of some background noises, like for example wind noises and some other stuff, a little bit more obvious as well, which might be distracting. So if you just want to hear certain sounds in shooters a little bit more, then you actually want to locate them, then it's maybe a feature that you might want to try. Because what I've noticed is that if you turn this on, the actual imaging and soundstage get a little bit tighter, and therefore you can't maybe quite get the distance of things so much, but therefore you can hear them a little bit better. Then we also have the voice clarity feature here for the microphone that I've already shown in the mic demo. Sound, like I said, we've covered also for the voice and lighting. And what you then have is, for example, here in the configuration, you can choose between stereo, 5.1, 7.1, also the mixer where we can set up the levels, and not just how loud the microphone is or the headset, but also the monitoring of your microphone. And in the settings to finalize this, you can update it or not, and all these things. So very powerful software, especially since you can see that you could set up a different kind of preset for every single game, and it will switch on its own. I usually don't do this, but if you want to customize your experience, also for example here for movies or for music and so on, you can do this, because we have with the BlasterX acoustic engine actually quite some powerful things, like for example the option to change surround, crystallizer, bass, smart volume, and the dialogue, plus along with the equalizer. That allows for quite some powerful customization. And I have to say that I'm personally not a huge fan of 5.1 or 7.1, and I had some discussions about that. I pretty much just like to stay minimal with stereo. But in this case, if you properly adjust things using, for example, surround, using the crystallizer, using 5.1, and you get it right to where you feel it's exactly what you want, then I don't think it will make you a better gamer, or it definitely will give you an advantage, but it will enhance your experience. Because if we already talk about the gaming, I would have to say this. Let's not kind of forget that this is a $70 gaming headset, and it doesn't really break out of the segment, so it can't do the same things that, for example, on Sennheiser HD58X can do for like twice the price, because the imaging isn't on that level. But I have to say that especially if you tune those settings to your liking, you will definitely enjoy gaming, because I mean, I would say roughly out of the box it is on a level comparable with something like the HyperX Cloud 2 or the Alpha here, because at around 100, they pretty much all offer a very similar kind of soundstage, which is like medium sized, and the imaging and such things. And what I actually want to answer is the question that I get quite a lot, or actually a few ones that people ask me, that I want to kind of get the myth out of the way. Because people ask me, is this good to hear footsteps? Is this good for Fortnite? Is this good for PUBG? Well, first of all, we kind of should establish one thing. With every headphone, you can hear footsteps, and it's not about if you can hear them or not, and it's also not about if one certain headphone is specialized for one game or the other one. It's more about actually being able to locate the footsteps and actually kind of feel, kind of in a spatial awareness, the distance, and that is important. But that, like I said, out of the box is on a very similar level like the definitely most popular ones, like for example HyperX or some similar ones. Now if you do use the settings, and especially if you don't just play competitive games but want racing games, with the crystallizer, with the surround sound, and with those features kind of placed right where you can kind of expand the soundstage or get it a little bit closer, then I definitely feel like it enhances the experience because, for example, when I played F1 2018, the whole atmosphere was just way more dense when I set the surround to the way I wanted it to. But don't forget one thing, the wider you make the soundstage, the more you lose out on proper imaging, which is good because you can obviously hear all the opponents where they come. You hear footsteps, and if you want to hear them even more so, then use the scout mode, but then it's a little bit harder to judge the distance. So this one can do it good, but not on a level of the Sennheiser 58X, because there you kind of have an almost 3D map in your head and you don't feel kind of the restrictions of the room. You feel like you are in that room and everything feels open. On the closed ones, like on pretty much all of them, you feel a little bit restricted and it feels like you're in a virtual closed off environment, which it after all is. Now, before we are getting into the music sound, I want to get into how easy they are to power. Now, with the USB cable, I would say they offer enough power for me with some small little reserves, which is actually already quite a lot, because usually USB-driven ones, or for example also wireless solutions that have their own amp inside, I didn't get quite the volume that I wanted to. But if it wouldn't be enough, I would have extra reserves if I would just enhance a few extra settings. But to get to that, powering them is pretty easy. The only thing that I would have to complain about the USB port connection is that the bass kind of noise floor is a little bit high. If you go up to maybe like volumes about 60, which I guess most people should be fine at, you don't really hear much yet, but going up above like 70 or even higher, which is where I'm usually like at 80 or something like that, you definitely hear some white noise. Some don't like that, especially if you have a lot of silence in your games, then it might be not distracting, but just sound not that clean. But yeah, that is that. And if you don't want to use, for example, something like the G6, then you can pretty much eradicate all of these issues, because this one has pretty much no kind of noise floor. It is so quiet, way quieter actually than my headphone amp, so it's very clean. And I will make a dedicated review for that one as well, because this one has pretty much the same functionalities with the software also to the Cloud Connect software. Oh, it's not Cloud Connect, it's Sound Blaster Connect. And it just offers a little bit better quality, especially if you also want to maybe bump up the quality of your microphone, like I said already earlier. And now I would say let's talk about the music. I have to say that this one actually works really good for music for what it is, because since it's a gaming headset, it's not really focused towards that, but it's absolutely usable. Also, obviously, for movies, because it's a good all-rounder. It doesn't try to do something that it's not. It is delivering a good bass. You can obviously boost them. I mean, you don't get too much depth. You don't get too precise, too extreme deep bass, but it's a very high quality, especially for this price, actually very respectable bass. It's well-defined. And it's definitely not boomy, because if I usually talk about things like gaming headset being focused towards action or competitive gaming, I would say this one is more like in the middle, slightly a little bit more towards competitive gaming. So it's not a super impressive action-packed gaming headset, because the bass is not that extreme. Even if you boost it up that much, that's not what it's trying to do. It rather plays again forward to quality bass and not just quantity of bass. So that is good. Mids are also fine. I would actually say, compared to something like the Cloud Alpha, I prefer them a little bit because they feel a little bit more pushed forward. Therefore, vocals sounded a little bit, I would say, more pleasant to me. We get more than enough highs, and obviously it's quite hard to actually judge this on its own, because due to the whole enhancements that you get. I tried this with the G6 to have a kind of bass level and also my headphone amp. And it really works along with all of those, because it's also very easy to drive, even with a phone, because this one doesn't need much power, which is nice to see. So you can drive it pretty much everything, and you can pretty much hear to everything. Because if it's pop music, if it's bass heavy music, if it's even a little bit more something sophisticated, or maybe like ballads where you want a little bit more details, you will get a good experience here. Obviously, let's not forget the price, let's not forget what it's able to do, but what it does out of the box is on a level of something like, for example, the Cloud Alpha, but with the extra options, I just feel the value gets so much better. I mean, let's actually talk about the competitors right now, and I'm going to start off with the Cloud 2 or Cloud Alpha, which are very, very similar. And here I would have to say, in terms of comfort, especially long-term comfort in the summer or something like that, due to the breathable pads, I would actually prefer the Creative H6. It just felt a little bit better on my head. The ear cups were a little bit deeper, and I liked that. Build quality, otherwise I kind of prefer a little bit the kind of more dense feeling plastic and also the metal here on the clouds. About the gaming, like I said, out of the box, pretty similar. In terms of imaging, in terms of general sounds, in terms of bass, I would say the HyperX offer a little bit more of an accentuated bass, a little bit more emphasized, not quite the mids, but it's pretty much same highs. Where though the H6 gets to shine is if you like those, use those enhancements, because you can adjust the soundstage the way you want them to. You can adjust the surround, use 5.1, 7.1, and you don't need a specific headphone amp or a sound card or something like that to achieve that. Here you might need an extra headphone amp to get that out of that, which you don't need here. And if you get something like the G6, which, okay, I have to say at around $130 or so is twice as much as the headphones themselves. But if you want to step up your game, if you think I'm kind of being limited, I want just more. I want the cleaner sound, I want the cleaner microphone, and I want more power with also the ability to use speakers with them, then this is your thing. And I will obviously, like I said, review this already. But you can just get more out of it, because for example these cost roughly usually like $80 to $100. Here you pay actually even less, but you don't need to think about amplification. You have so many extra features, you have so much more customization to make this yours, because this in most situations is what it is. And well, this one can be what you want it to be. Okay, though I have to mention that, for example, a lot of people seem to use Razer Synapse software to adjust kind of these settings. It's not quite as powerful or quite as convenient, I would say, like the Sound Blaster Connect software, but evil people not having a Razer seem to use those because especially of all the extra things and so on. And now there is one more competitor that I would like to mention, even though I've actually not even tried it yet myself, but I hopefully will. And I've actually already recommended it quite a few times because I saw so many glowing reviews, which is the Cooler Master MH751 or 752. So the 751 is usually at around $60 for, as far as I've seen, and maybe like 15 to 20 bucks more you pay for the 752. The only difference that is that with the 752 get an USB dongle that pretty much does the same as the USB cable here. So it pretty much offers you the amplification, but you don't get the software suite. So you get a button to get surround sound and turn off the mic and so on. So it's a little bit more, I would say, maybe easier to use because you don't have to install a software, but it's therefore just not as customizable. Now, in terms of comfort, I heard it's supposed to be extremely comfortable and it offers great value, especially also at around 80 bucks, which is comparable to this one. You also get the USB functionality if you wanted to, but also obviously with the 3.5mm jack. I heard that it's also supposed to have a very good sound and also a very good mic. So I guess at the moment, even though I can't really judge it myself yet, it seems to be the closest competitor. Because if you would ask me H6 or any HyperX at the moment, I would definitely go for the H6 because it just offers so much more. And the sound is out of the box already on the same level, but it can be even more so yours and in some ways therefore just better. And this just leads me to the conclusion. We get good build, good design, a very good microphone, and it doesn't really matter if you have a headphone amp or a kind of external sound card, because if you use noise reduction, it's for this price range so much better than what HyperX offers with their microphones. Very clean, not maybe super clear, and sometimes the clarity is not that amazing, but there are options to improve that maybe even more so. Long-term comfort, good gaming experience, highly customizable, good music experience, also more movies. So what more could you wish for at this price point? I honestly don't really know. And I don't want to hype it too much, but 70, especially considering of how bad cheaper gaming headsets were in the past, this is highly respectable. Because like 2 or 3 years ago, I could agree with you and tell you that pretty much all of them had bad sound, they were uncomfortable for a long period of time, and the mics themselves were pretty much unusable. They were just crap. And in that time frame, it was HyperX with the Cloud 2 most notably, and also with the Alpha, that they got so popular in my opinion that they kind of got comfortable and they kind of stagnated, didn't really improve, they didn't get cheaper, they didn't really make anything comparable to this one with an easy USB solution. I mean, there is the Cloud 2 with the dongle, but that is just not the same anymore. These days, people want more adjustment options. They want breathable AirPods for a longer period of time to be able to hear, listen to them, because these can get a little bit warm for some people. I heard some build quality complaints. I can't really judge the long-term build quality here. And I would say that at this point in time, I'm gonna go so far, and if someone asks me for a headphone at around the price point, at around the HyperX, I'm gonna go from now on and recommend the H6 until I find something better. Like I said, the 751 is very high up on my list, but anything else that I've reviewed at this price range just doesn't offer the quality and, once again, the functionality. And all that for something that is actually affordable, almost cheap, yeah, is a winner in my book. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. Until next time, bye.